Hello, and welcome back to the Live Label Free podcast. Today's episode is another blog reading session. That is to say, I'll be reading to you another piece that I originally wrote for my blog and posted as a carousel post on Instagram. And if you listen to my podcast episode titled Autistic Types of Binge Eating, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Because in the intro of that episode, I said that I wanted to find a new, more joyful way for me to share my written content in audio format without scripting it in an unnatural way to ironically make it sound natural. That being said, if you want to get earlier access to content that maybe isn't yet on the podcast, do be sure to check out my blog at livelabelfree.com/blog and be sure to follow me on Instagram at livelabelfree. Now, in today's Live Label Free blog series, I'll be talking about why the underlying reasons behind the fear of weight gain are often very different for autistic people struggling with eating disorders. And more specifically, you'll learn about 5 factors that may cause fear of weight gain in autistic people. Please note that these are just 5 factors. So if you have any others that contributed to your fear of weight gain or someone you know has a different experience, I would absolutely love to hear from you. It makes this podcast more of a conversation and inspires me to keep learning and sharing that new knowledge so that we can change the world and build awareness around autism and eating disorders together, because in the end, us humans are tribal beings. We need each other. We need to support each other. No one can ever do anything alone, and I've learned that the hard way too. I've so often thought, oh, I can do this alone, I can do this by myself, and I couldn't. So anyways, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode about autism and the fear of weight gain.
Gotta put one foot in front of the other, and you'll be around the corner soon.
Welcome to Live Label Free, the podcast, where you'll learn to let go of limiting labels and embrace your unique brain. As my mom says so beautifully in her song,
Fear is a heavy load to carry.
which is why on this podcast, you'll learn the scientific links between neurodiversity and eating disorders, giving you a deeper understanding of how you can face your fears and become truly free. Together, you and me, we will keep putting
One foot in front of the other.
Likely, the most common belief about restrictive eating disorders is that they are about a desire to lose weight and be thin. For many autistics, though, this is not at all the case. I personally never resonated with the fear of weight gain in the typical sense, nor did I have a desire to be thin. Though autistic people may have a fear of weight gain, the root of the fear is often different than when the fear is present in neurotypicals. Furthermore, the fear has multiple layers to it, making it much deeper than the fear of fatness so many professionals attach to eating disorders. So now I'm going to peel back 5 of those layers, starting with number 1, difficulty with change. So autistic people tend to find change very difficult, especially sudden changes. By nature, gaining weight means change. Not only does the number on the scale change, but so does the way one's body feels, what clothes one can wear, not to mention how people may treat or react to the person differently when they look quote-unquote healthy. So that was factor number 1, the factor that may contribute to fear of weight gain in autistic people. And factor number 2 that I'm going to be talking about today is the desire for predictability. So one of the scariest parts of recovery for me was that I did not know exactly how my body would change. And I had questions like, how much weight would I gain? What would a bigger body even feel like? What if my body was too uncomfortable? Where would I even buy new clothes? All of these uncertainties can become so overwhelming that retreating to the eating disorder can then seem to be the safer option for many years. Now, factor number 3 is sensory perception. Weight gain is a sensory-rich process. Different parts of your body expand. Your shape changes, clothes fit differently, and parts of your body may touch or rub against each other. Parts that may never have rubbed against or touched each other before, or maybe you lost weight because you didn't like the feeling of that rubbing together. So yeah, all of these factors can cause sensory overload, which, as I don't have to tell you, is an autistic person's worst nightmare. Factor number 4 is a factor I don't personally resonate with, but I know that this is definitely a factor because many of my clients have told me about this, as well as people I've had on the podcast have told me about this factor, and factor number 4 is gender dysphoria. And if you're unfamiliar with gender dysphoria occurs when there is a conflict between the sex assigned at birth and the gender with which one identifies. So this often results in a strong desire to change the shape of one's body, of which weight loss is often a default approach, because what is basically the easiest way to change your body without expensive surgery, and that is eating less and moving more and just losing weight. So then number 5, the last factor I'll be diving into today, is fear of responsibility. And I actually did an entire podcast episode a while back, which is also available as a blog post if you'd rather read, about the fear of growing up and being healthy. So if you want like a deep dive into that perspective, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode. But in summary, losing weight and therefore staying small, quote unquote, protected me from the fear that I wouldn't be able to handle the responsibilities of being healthy. This fear may be amplified in autistic individuals with eating disorders, as the world is not built to accommodate neurodivergent needs. And that's all for today's blog post podcast episode. If you want to learn how you can support yourself or an autistic loved one through the weight gain process in eating disorder recovery, be sure to read my book, Rainbow Girl. I pull back the curtain on my entire life and share what it was like growing up undiagnosed autistic, how this led to the development of an eating disorder, and all the steps I took to fully recover and become label-free. You can grab your very own copy today at livelabelfree.com/Rainbow Girl. I hope to chat with you through my Rainbow Girl words, and otherwise, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye-bye for now, my friend.
Just one foot in front of the other, and you'll see around the corner soon.
This podcast has been recorded by your host, Liv. This podcast has been edited by my small but mighty Live Label Free team, and the beautiful song One Foot in Front of the Other that you are now listening to was written and recorded by my beautiful mom, Louise Alexandra. I am so grateful for my team and everyone who supports Live Label Free. Together, we are always stronger.